Hi everyone and welcome back to Farmers Corners FC, the French football podcast with the accent. It's the first episode of season 2. I stopped season 1 a little bit abruptly after France got out of the Euro 2020. One's got to grieve. It was definitely not a good way of getting out of the Europe, losing against Switzerland at the penalty. But now we're back to talk about what matters most for us. Ligue 1. Obviously behind me is the Marseille flag from 1990 now, a 31-year-old flag. And today we're just going to, I guess, preview a little bit the Ligue 1 season. We're going to talk about what happened during the off season, the Mercato. A lot has happened, especially in Paris, Marseille, Lyon. And we're going to talk also about the expectations that we have from all our teams in Ligue 1 this season. We're not going to do the whole Ligue 1 right now because that'd be too much to do, but we're going to focus on the top 10. We're going to discuss who came, who left during the off-season so far, which is not finished. It finishes on August 31st. And we're also going to talk about just the results that they had in the friendly, and also discuss which one is the player that might be the biggest asset for all those teams in the season 2021. Let's start straight away. You know the deal for whoever is listening to me on Spotify. A bit of music coming in. Alright, the first team that we are going to talk about, of course, is the Ligue 1 2021 champions, Lille, surprise champions last year, made their way out of that top 4 battle between Paris Saint-Germain, Lyon, Monaco, and themselves, and won it basically at the last game day, but really a game before the end. Sorry, they sort of had it in their hands. A lot has happened for Lille, and unfortunately not a lot of positive changes. Christophe Galtier, the coach, obviously left, and he is now with Nice. Luis Campos had left early in the season, which we knew was going to be a big change for the off-season. And Lille lost a couple of key players, mainly the goalkeeper Mike Maignan, who, if you need a reminder, scored I think 20 clean sheets last season, 17 or 20, can't remember, but like a good amount of clean sheet, and definitely a big asset and a big reason why Lille was able to finish champion in 2021. What they lost as well is Soumaoro and Soumaré. Soumaoro, the defender that was on loan anyway last year, and Boubakary Soumaré, the young midfielder, very promising. And we hope that they're not going to lose more players, but there are some players that I said that maybe would be on their way out. In the meantime, the coach who arrived is Gourvenec, Jocelyn Gourvenec, former French professional player who played in Marseille, for example, and also, if I'm not mistaken, Nantes and Guingamp. Jocelyn Gourvenec, who maybe is a bit more offensive-minded than what Christophe Galtier is on the bench, but is also definitely less charismatic and doesn't have the great record that Christophe Galtier has with every team that he's coached. Jocelyn Gourvenec, sorry, we've seen coaching at Guingamp, and he did some great things, and we have also seen him coaching at Bordeaux, and it was not as good. It was not as good, the football that he offered, and it wasn't as good how he managed a locker room that had a little bit more, I guess, stars, for lack of a better word, than what Guingamp had. And in the preseason, we're going to talk about the off-season afterwards. In the preseason, Lille had a game against Waasland Beveren, and they won 2-0. They drew 1-1 against Kortrijk, and then they lost against Benfica 1-0. They also played Porto, and they lost as well 3-2 if I'm not mistaken. Lille was going to be the first team to get some official game time, because they're going to play the Trophée des Champions against Paris Saint-Germain, of course, and that's this weekend, August 2nd. Early next week, sorry, should I say. Lille, who, like I said, lost a few players, but also gained a few players by the mean of players coming back from loan. We've talked about it in the few podcasts last season, that Lille has a very expensive team, a lot of players that are under professional contract, and quite a few of them were on loan. So they got Léo Jardim back mainly, which could be the starting goalkeeper, although now there are rumors that they're looking for another starting goalkeeper. And they got players like, Angel Gomez as well, the former under 23 for Manchester United, coming back. Not a lot besides that. And as we said, they've lost Boubakary Soumaré, Mike Maignan, Adam Soumaoro. There's also conversation that Ikone could be on the way, Bamba could be on the way out. I think it's just going to depend on how much money they're gonna receive right for those players. We thought they were going to lose Jose Font, which would have been a big loss, but they're actually going to keep Jose Font for this season. If you look at the team and what should be the starting 11, not a lot of change from last year. The goalkeeper is the main one. Without Maignan, right now it's Leo Jardim, but there are, like I said, discussion that maybe Sergio Rico could come in, or maybe the Greek goalkeeper from Benfica. The four back four, excuse me, Ibrahim Selik, not Ibrahim, Ibrahim Seling is a friend of mine from Aix-en-Provence. If you listen, hi. Selik is going to be the fullback most likely. Jose Fontes, Van Botman as centre backs, and Reinildo or Bradaric will be the left back. And then in the midfield, Benjamin André is still there for now. Renato Sanchez is still there, but there's a lot of talk that he would be out. And on the wings we have Ikone, Araujo, Bamba and Yazici. Up front, Yilmaz and Jonathan David are still there, and Timothy Weah will hope to get some game time as well. So the team really hasn't changed that much if you remove the goalkeeper, and which I think is the most important thing as far as Lille is concerned, the coach. I think without Christophe Galtier, this team is going to need a bit of time to adapt. And great that they finished champion last year, but that means they are going to come into the season with a lot of expectation, and they're going to play Champions League as well, which will cost them a little bit of energy. They're going to be on the first hat. So they could potentially have a friendly draw for the groups, but I guess I'm a bit worried about what that team can do on the bigger stage, especially with a different coach, with a different direction, with a different administration. It's going to be interesting to see. I have to be honest, and I don't believe in Jocelyn Gourvenec, but I love to be proven wrong, and I love to see that Lille is performing this season. I don't see them really coming out neither in the top three or doing much in Champions League, unfortunately. As far as the players that I think we should keep an eye on this season, I think Sven Botman is really going to come into his own and show how great of a defender he is next to Jose Font. And I think Jonathan David as well is going to, now that he's had a full season behind him already in Liga, I think this season we're going to see a lot from the young Canadian striker. And that's going to be two players that I'm sure Lille is banking on to make a bit of money at the next off season. So yeah, if you want to look for two players to check on Lille, in my mind it's definitely Sven Botman and Jonathan David, confirming the good things that we've seen from them last season. The next team that we're looking at is Paris Saint-Germain, PSG, coached by Pochettino, Pochettino, who's been here since January 2021. PSG that had a good off-season. They didn't play against great teams. They won 4-0 against Le Mans, 2-2 against Chambly, but it's a pre-season game, so it doesn't matter too much. They won 2-1 against Augsburg, and they won 1-0 against Orléans, a game that was supposed to be against Genoa, but of course the pandemic prevented the Italian side from traveling to France. PSG, of course, is going to play the Trophée des Champions as well. Excuse me. Is going to play the Trophée des Champions as well against Lille. PSG has done a huge recruitment during the off-season. I'm sure everyone has heard of it. Gigio Donnarumma, Sergio Ramos, of course Ashraf Hakimi, the Moroccan player for 60 million from Inter Milan. Gigi Wijnaldum, that they got for free from Liverpool. That's four names that can definitely be a game changer for Paris Saint-Germain, and four names that can help them get into where they want to get, which is, as every year, winning the Champions League. In the meantime, they didn't lose too much. They lost Michel Bakker, their left back that wasn't playing anyway. They lost Kais Ruiz-Atil, the 18-year-old, who maybe had a future in Paris Saint-Germain, but definitely in a few years, not right now. So he's gone to Barcelona B right now. But they recruited, I think, what was missing in Paris Saint-Germain, and it's going to create a little bit of maybe issues in the locker room. But a player like Sergio Ramos, in my mind, is exactly what Paris Saint-Germain needed since Ibrahimovic and Thiago Motta left. Thiago Silva did that a little bit, bringing the experience and bringing the work rate and the workload that is needed to be a professional that wants to play at a high level like Paris Saint-Germain wants to. But since they lost that, they didn't have it. And Thiago Silva sort of grew in Paris Saint-Germain, so he didn't have that role that, I'm coming from a big club and this is what we do there and this is what we should be doing here, because he grew up also in Paris Saint-Germain a little bit, staying 6 years in the capital. I think Sergio Ramos will bring this, even if he's 35 years old. He's the player that in Real Madrid was still the first at training and the last at training, was still very, very focused on his body image and on his when I say body image, I mean on his who has that professional attitude, which is, you got to train harder and you got to be ready. And he's a player right now that's maybe injured, but I think Paris Saint-Germain will need him when it matters, which is at the end of the season, which is when the Champions League games are getting important. He's obviously a defender that can score a lot of goals because he was the second best goal scorer in Real Madrid behind Benzema. That's obviously the penalty, but it means that they have an extra player who can play penalties if it comes to it in those in game. Besides that, you got two defenders that are not the youngest, but that are still a lot of room for improvement, Marquinhos and Kimpembe, and they're going to learn a lot from Sergio Ramos if those two defenders want to become world-class defender, which they are very close to it, in my opinion. Having a guy like Sergio Ramos next to them will show them how good they are right now at 25 and 28 years old. If they want to be that good until they're 35 years old, they'll see what it takes, training and playing next to Sergio Ramos. The other big recruit was Gigio Donnarumma, and that's a bit of a controversial one because of course it's a score to get Donnarumma for free, and no team should ever think about it twice getting Donnarumma for free, but it's also the one spot in the Paris Saint-Germain lineup that didn't need recruitment, goalkeeper. Keylor Navas is probably one of the reasons why Paris did so well last season in Champions League, and one of the reasons why they actually could fight for the title until the end, because the rest of the team definitely wasn't performing as well like Keylor Navas. And then the way to thank him is you're bringing a goalkeeper that just won the Euro and that is going to fight for a starting lineup spot. I think that could be an issue into the locker room if they don't find a solution quickly. I think it's going to be hard either way for Pochettino, because if you say Navas is my number one, then why did you sign Donnarumma? And Donnarumma is not going to accept it. And if you say Donnarumma is my number one, then you're doing to Keylor Navas what Real Madrid did to him when they picked up Thibaut Courtois, and we've seen how well Navas bounced back after in Paris Saint-Germain. So I think it's a bit of a complicated situation that they have to look at and that they have to solve, I reckon, before the season starts. Navas will start in the goals because Donnarumma isn't back from holidays yet after the Euro. But once Donnarumma is back and once he's in form, he's going to want to have that number one spot. So that's going to be a lot of fun for Pochettino in the locker room. The two other recruits that I mentioned earlier, Hakimi and Wijnaldum, I don't think anything is wrong with those two players. I think they're probably the best thing that can happen to Paris Saint-Germain. We didn't see a very good right back for a while at Paris Saint-Germain. Mind you, Hakimi is more a wing back that likes to play offensively than a right back who can do the defensive tasks, which is going to be something as well for Pochettino to consider. We know that Pochettino loves to play 4-2-3-1, so that means that Hakimi would be an actual right back, whether in Dortmund and in Inter they were playing with a back three. So Hakimi was actually a wing back on the right with a lot of space on his wing, and he likes to run, and he can run for a long time. In the midfield, the addition of Gigi Wijnaldum is such a good addition. Oh, hey, say hi to my dog. He's such a good addition, and he's a player that, he's the captain, was the captain of Holland during the Euro, so he's a player who knows what he's doing and who knows what he's supposed to be doing. He's also a player that scores a lot of goals, and Paris Saint-Germain didn't have that in the midfield the past few seasons. They have a lot of goals coming from up front, but they didn't have a lot of goals coming from the midfield. So it's going to be interesting to see what role he takes in the middle of the park. It's a space that Paris Saint-Germain needed to straighten for a while. They have Verratti, who's a very good player. They have Paredes, who's a very good player, but they didn't have somebody who can score a goal like Wijnaldum can. Who's going to play next to him in the midfield? That's probably the question. They're still missing that piece, which is the strong, I guess the one that brings the grinta, the one that brings the fight in the middle of the pitch. We'll see that Wijnaldum runs a lot and fights for every single ball, but he's playing a little bit higher than what Danilo Pereira would play, for example. And Danilo, I think, we'll see after a good preseason, but he's not yet to the level of what Thiago Motta brought to Paris Saint-Germain when he first started, when he came from Italy. It's interesting to see what Pochettino is going to do with that team. If he keeps his 4-2-3-1, it looks like the team is already sort of drawn for him. But if it goes on 3-4-3, I think he's going to have a lot of opportunity playing Hakimi on the right side, playing Bernat back from injury onto the left side. This is probably where Pochettino wants to go. As far as up front, obviously Di Maria, who had a great off-season winning the Copa America. Neymar and the big question mark come from Mbappe. Is Mbappe going to stay at Paris Saint-Germain this season is a big question, and a question that's going to be discussed by every French media until the end of August. It's his last season, at least on his contract. That's the last season that he has. And basically, he could stay for a whole year and then leave on the free. For a player that you recruited 200 million, leaving on the free is not something that you really want if you're Paris Saint-Germain. But the other option is to selling him now, and I don't know if Paris Saint-Germain is ready to sell it now. Moreover, I don't know which team in Europe is capable of putting 100 million or so on a player like Mbappe. What's going to happen if he doesn't sign the contract, I don't know. We've seen in the past with Adrien Rabiot, who's not, of course, who's not as good as Mbappe. We've seen Paris Saint-Germain happy to bench their player if they don't want to sign a new contract. Are they going to do this with a player of the caliber of Mbappe? Time will tell. I think it'll be a good idea to sell him. I think it'll be a good idea to use then that money to recruit a better number 9 than Icardi, or a false 9 that would be better than Icardi. I think getting rid of Mbappe will also means that Neymar will cement his place again as the real leader in Paris Saint-Germain, which has a little bit changed, I think, this season with Mbappe getting better and better. But we'll see. I guess we'll see what they do. It's going to be definitely a fascinating subject until the end of the summer mercato, and this is going to be something that we're going to discuss a lot on the Farmers Podcast FC if my little Bertie the pug lets me do it. All in all, I think Paris Saint-Germain is going for the win this season. I think they are going to try to get Ligue 1 back, of course, because it's not good for Qatar not to win Ligue 1, and they're also going for Champions League, and they got the player to do it. They got depth, a little bit more depth now on some positions. They got a player like Sergio Ramos, who's going to be such a different maker when it matters, who's going to be the kind of player that can, when they go to Manchester City and when they lose it after Di Maria takes the red card, Sergio Ramos is the player who can get the whole team to calm down, to keep playing football, and to try and score that last goal. So it's a scary team that they're going to line up this season, Paris Saint-Germain. It's a team that I'm looking forward to see playing. The first game is against Troyes, which we're going to talk about in the second part of our Ligue 1 preview. It's going to be very, very interesting. We'll see what they do as far as Mbappe goes. If they keep Mbappe, we already know who's going to be the next best goal scorer in Ligue 1. If they don't keep him, who they're going to recruit is going to be interesting to follow. But I expect them to do a lot of damage this season, of course. The next team on that we are going to discuss is Monaco. Monaco, who finished third last season. Monaco still obviously coached by Niko Kovac. Niko Kovac, who arrived at Monaco in July 2020, of course, before last season. And Niko Kovac, who's done amazing things with the club of the Principality. We are talking about a team who had two players over 15 goals at the end of the season. We're talking about a team who had a great result despite having a young squad and a goalkeeper that frankly wasn't up to par. And they fixed all those things, the off-season very quickly. They played 4 games. They won 3-1 against Salzburg. They won 3-1 against Club Brugge. They won 2-1 against Wolfsburg. And they drew 0-0 against Antwerp. What we can see right now is that Paul Mitchell, his work is paying off. Paul Mitchell is the sporting director of Monaco, formerly of the Red Bull company, Red Bull football institution, and we can see that he's finding the right player for Kovac, and that Kovac and him are playing really well together. Obviously, the main recruit for Monaco is Nubel, Thomas Nubel from. Sorry, Alexander Nubel from Bayern Munich, who's a young goalkeeper, 24 years old, who probably was very close to getting the job from Manuel Neuer, but obviously the Bayern Munich decided to keep their captain in goals, and so Alexander Nubel wanted to find work somewhere else. Basically, he's on loan with an option to buy, of course, and yeah, it's definitely a great catch for Monaco, because Benjamin Lecomte just wasn't the kind of goalkeeper I think that you can have to be able to play for the title. Besides that, they've recruited Ismail Jacobs, the left winger from Köln, so two players playing in German Bundesliga, which is not a surprise for Niko Kovac and Paul Mitchell. They know this league very well, and they didn't lose that many important players. They sold Henriks, who was already on loan last season. They sold Ballo Touré, who was a bit irregular anyway, and they've lost a couple of players. They didn't renew Stevan Jovetic, who had scored a few important goals last season, but they have what it takes next to it. They didn't renew Loic Badiachil, the goalkeeper, the brother of Benoit, who's the centre back, but it's probably a player that they didn't need to renew. We know how many players are under contract for Monaco. A lot of them came back from loan. It's going to be a matter of what is Monaco going to do with those players in 21-22. If we look at the team right now, the only change really in the starting 11 is Alexander Nubel instead of Benjamin Lecomte. They kept Sidibé, Disasi, Maripan, Caio Henrique. They kept Chouameni and Fofana, who were a standout last season in the midfield. And up front, Sofiane Diop, Wissam Ben Yedder, Kevin Volland, Alexander Golovin, but also Crépin Diatta, Gelson Martins, Pellegrini, Isidore. They have a very good chance of fighting for a title again, because Kovac is here in his second year. His work is definitely paying off. And we've seen all the good that he's done during the first season. He had to adjust, who's my centre backs? Is it Disasi and Badiachile, or is that Disasi and Maripan? And then Matsima came into the fold as well. And now he's got these four players to play with. He's obviously going to play the preliminary rounds of the Champions League with the hope of getting in the Champions League. And I wouldn't be surprised if this squad makes it in the Champions League and makes it to play a good role for the French football in Champions League. As far as Ligue 1, I really see them fighting for the title until the end. Like I said, it's a team that now has played together for a year. They haven't lost any key player. They've added some strength. They've added some depth to their team, and we're going to really see the work of Kovac and Mitchell pay off this season. And I'm looking forward to see them playing. The player I think we need to follow in this team is Sofiane Diop, who's going to confirm, and I think Crépin Diatta is also slowly but surely remind everyone how great he was when he was playing in Belgium in the Jupiler League, and we're going to see those two players really explode to the face of Liga, which is going to make this Monaco squad pretty reckless and pretty hard to beat. The next team that we're going to talk about is Olympique Lyonnais. Olympique Lyonnais, whose main addition during the offseason is Peter Bosz. Obviously, the Lyon fans will be thrilled with the departure of Rudi Garcia and the arrival of Peter Bosz. Lyon, who just missed the Champions League qualification for a game at the end when on their fight against Monaco. And Lyon, who's going to play the Europa League this season, but I'm sure Europa League is going to be an objective for them, and they will want to go as far as they. Besides Peter Bosz, Lyon also added some experience into their backline. Damien Da Silva came for free from Rennes, where he had a good season last year, a very I guess a very hard defender who likes the fight. They also got Enrique, left back from Vasco da Gama, for free, Brazilian left back, which 27 years old. It's yet to see how good he's going to be in Liga, and that's about it. They got a few young players promoted into the first team, but again, they didn't lose. A lot of key players. Obviously, they lost their captain, who was at the end of his contract, Memphis Depay. They lost Melvin Barr, which it's a bit surprising, the young left back, who went to Nice for 3 million euros. But besides that, the team is really close to what it was last season. At least the best player stayed. I think we're going to see a little bit more change on the transfer window for Lyon. I wouldn't be surprised if a player like Aouar gets sold, or if a player like Thiago Mendes gets sold as well. But what we're going to see also is probably an arrival, most likely a winger. I think that's what Lyon really needs right now. Probably a left back as well. I think the two posts that they really need to reinforce is that left back position, and that offensive winger position, because right now if you look at their offensive line, you got Slimani, you got Dembele who can play in the middle, you got Chino Kadewere who can play a little bit everywhere. But the only player with real speed is going to be Toko Ekambi, and we know that Toko Ekambi fights hard and plays hard, but isn't the most clinical player in front of goal. So having somebody who can, create and provoke, as well as Toko Ekambi, with a little bit better of a technical ability, is probably what Lyon needs to have. In the preseason, they got some good results. They beat two local teams, Bourg-en-Bresse and Villefranche, 5-1 and 2-0. Then they beat Wolfsburg 4-1, drew against Villarreal 2-2, and lost against Sporting Lisbon 3-2. But what we've seen mainly is that improvement in the mentality on the field. Peter Bosch, he's the former coach at Ajax and the former coach at Leverkusen, and with both those teams he did some wonders on a short time, a year and a half, not more than that. But he really brought that total football idea to their teams. And he's a son of Cruyff, as we can call him. He's a fan of what Cruyff did in Dutch football and in Barcelona as a coach, and that's what he wants. He wants the total football. He wants the attacking football. Something that I'm sure the Lyon fans will love to see at the Groupama Stadium. It's going to be really interesting to see how he plays with the young players. Maxence Caqueret, Ryan Cherki. Those are promising young players that we haven't quite seen performing on a consistent level in Liga. That's their chance this season. If Lyon doesn't recruit in their position, which doesn't look like they will, it's their chance to step up. Of course, we're going to see Lucas Paqueta dominating once again. Tough luck for him in the Copa America, losing in the final. He will want to get a title under his belt with Lyon, no doubt. So Lyon is going to be a team that we have to definitely look for in that Liga. The last thing with Lyon that's going to be important is what are they going to do with their goalkeeper. A lot of noise around Andre Onana, the goalkeeper from Ajax, coming to Lyon. Of course, I'm sure you follow the news. He's suspended right now because he used a doping product, which supposedly he didn't mean to. So he's still not going to be able to play until November or December, if I'm not mistaken. So when he comes, then he'll be able to play after. But obviously a lot of teams are trying to buy him now because his price is cheaper now than they will be when he's able to play. Arsenal was on the case. Lyon is on the case as well. And I think Anthony Lopez is a great goalkeeper, but same as Alexandre Lecomte, I think they need a goalkeeper that's a little bit better if they want to be able to win something. And yeah, I don't think Anthony Lopez is going to cut it. So if they get Onana, which is probably one of the best goalkeepers in Europe as far as playing ball to feet, I think it's going to be a great steal for Lyon, for Juninho, and for Peter Bosch. We'll see what this team is going to give us. I expect a lot of positive football, a lot of spectacular football, a lot of goals scored by Lyon. And if there's a player that we should follow for Lyon, I think Maxence Caqueret in the midfield will probably finally explode. And I think Moussa Dembele, the striker who didn't have a very good year last season, even when he was loaned to Atletico Madrid, he didn't see a lot of football. I think he's going to wake up and have a bit of a rebirth moment in Lyon this season, where his situation up front is not going to be contested. As soon as he scored the first goal, it's probably going to be very positive from him at that point. The next team that we're going to talk about is Olympique de Marseille, the other Olympique in France. Some would say the only Olympique in France if they're from Marseille. Olympique de Marseille, who probably had the most exciting off-season in Ligue 1. If you maybe quality-wise, Paris Saint-Germain won, but quantity and and excitement-wise, Marseille definitely won that one. We've seen what Longoria can bring to this team. Pablo Longoria, the new president, and he's done a lot of good for Olympique de Marseille. Marseille was obviously coached by Sampaoli since the end of the 2021 season, and it's the first off-season with Sampaoli as well. So he's found players that are going to work with his tactic and with his way of play, which is going to be exciting to see for Marseille. Marseille in the preseason who had some good results: a 3-0 win against Martigues, a 2-1 win against Sète, a 3-1 win against Servette, 1-1 draw against Braga, and a 1-0 win against Benfica. We've seen Payet in good form. We've seen some good things from the new player that were bought over, and let's go through those players that Marseille bought, the one that we can find in the starting lineup. Leonardo Balerdi, of course, has been bought from Dortmund after he was on loan last season, but then Marseille added Gerson from Flamengo for 25 million, Luan Perez from Santos from 4.5 million, Conrad de la Fuente from Barcelona B for 3 million, Pau Lopez and Cengiz Under, who they got on loan from Roma, but with basically a buying option. That means they're going to buy them for sure. I think the option is like if they play one game, they get bought by Marseille. And then Matteo Guendouzi as well, loan from Arsenal. William Saliba, loan from Arsenal. A couple of young players. They're getting Radonjic back, who was loaned to Hertha Berlin last season. A lot of positive signing, and you know, almost they said before the off season that they needed 9 players. They almost got those 9 players now. They got a goalkeeper in Pau Lopez to put Mandanda under pressure to make sure that they both perform. They have a midfielder in Gerson that's going to be what Marseille didn't have. A number 8 that can be number 10, that can play offensive and box to box as well. Gerson, if you don't know him, for the past season, the 2 season in Brazil, he was nominated to be the best player of the league. So he's somebody who's a proven talent. He had a bit of a trip in Europe 3 years ago that didn't work out for him, but he was played out of position, and he has definitely since grown a bit. If you weren't sure as a Marseille fan how good Gerson was, you could see that the Flamengo supporters were pretty upset to see their best player moving to a small team like Marseille instead of going to Barcelona or Real Madrid, where they expected him to go. As far as Luan Perez, a very good defender to recruit, somebody who can play centre back but also left back in that very famous 3-2-4-1 that Sampaoli is playing. So somebody who Sampaoli knows already because he's coached him before, and somebody who Sampaoli really wanted to bring over to Marseille. A lot of positive, like I say, in the off season. As far as the player that they lost, of course they lost Florian Thauvin, which could be a big loss, but this form last season wasn't great. Florian Thauvin, who's gone on to play in Mexico for Tigres. They've lost Kevin Strootman, who was loaned last season and was sold this season. They've lost Lucas Perrin, the young centre back, who's loaned in Strasbourg, and Strasbourg has a buying option if I'm not mistaken. Hiroki Sakai has gone back to Japan to play for the Urawa Reds. Maxime Lopez, of course, was gone to Sassuolo, and it's been officialized now. And they haven't kept some players that were on the end of their contract or that they had loaned. They haven't kept Yuto Nagatomo, they haven't kept Johan Pelé, they haven't kept Valère Germain, and Encham and Cuisance are also back into their club, and Marseille didn't want to make an offer. The player that might come is Paul Lirola. He was, of course, loaned last season from Fiorentina, and Marseille is trying really hard to get him back this off-season. There's obviously a lot of conversation about how much it's going to cost Marseille to be able to get Lirola, but Lirola himself is saying that he wants to come to Marseille and has let his president and his sporting director know at Fiorentina that he really wants to come back to Marseille. So that's going to be something that we're gonna have to follow. The words right now is Lirola and Daniel Vass, then the Denmark player, from the Danish player from Valencia, who would come and reinforce Marseille in two positions where they really need somebody, the two wing back positions, which is something that is very, very important for Jorge Sampaoli. What's going to be, I think, the best thing to see this season for Marseille is Sampaoli really playing his football, really getting his players set up the way he wants them to set up. The preparation, the pre-season preparation has been done with a lot of physical work, of course, and what we've seen from the pre-season game is maybe the most important thing for Marseille. Dimitri Payet is back in form. He had a great first few games. He's really sort of reborn under Sampaoli. He's lost the few extra kilos that everyone knew he had taken on, and that's just going to be allowing him to play the football that he knows how to play. We can see him actually calling the ball in transition. We can see him trying to get the ball in behind the defense. We can see him doing all those runs that we didn't see last year. And if you add that to his ability to play ball to feet, it's probably going to be the player that's going to be the most important for Marseille this season. Another very positive fact in the south of France is that it looks like Arkadiusz Milik, the Polish striker, is staying in Marseille, and it's somebody that we expect to score a lot of goals at the Velodrome. And of course, the main positive for Marseille is that the fans are going to be back in the stadium, and we know how important it is for this team to have their fans around them, screaming around them, and pushing them to perform. Lots of positive for Olympique de Marseille, who finished 5th last season. They're going to play the Europa League, of course, and it's going to be a bit of an objective, I'm sure, for the club to be able to go as far as possible in that competition. But I also think they're going to try and fight for the title. I don't see them fighting with the likes of Monaco and Paris Saint-Germain yet, but who knows, if Paris Saint-Germain has a bad season like they had last year, or if Monaco becomes inconsistent like they had some period last year as well, maybe Marseille can find their way, sneaking their way into the top 3. It's going to be one of the teams to follow for sure this season. Next up is Stade Rennais, the team from Brittany, Rennes, who's coached by Bruno Genesio, who arrived in the middle of the season, towards the end rather, of 2021. Rennes, who during their pre-season drew against Le Havre 2-2, drew against the Standard de Liège 3-3, lost against Retafe 2-1, and lost against Levante 3-1. So not a lot of positive results in the pre-season. They brought a couple of very interesting players. Loïc Badet, the centre-back from Lens, who had been fantastic last season, has been bought by Rennes, 17 million euros, good operation for Lens. And Kamaldeen Sulemana, the left winger from Nordsjælland in Denmark, is also coming to Rennes for 15 million. The last good piece of recruitment for Rennes is Birger Meling, the left back, the Norwegian left back, who was at Nîmes last season and was probably one of the standout in the team that was relegated. So Rennes recruited where they needed to. They probably didn't need to change the team a lot because Bruno Genesio was finally getting around that team to perform, and they didn't lose a lot of players. They lost Damien Da Silva, of course, which might be important for them defensively. I just heard this morning that they lost Niamzi as well, their other centre back, was going to go to Troyes. They didn't keep Stéphane Nzonzi, they didn't keep Dalbert, they didn't keep Clément Grenier. Sacha Boey, their young right back, is going to Galatasaray, and Brassier, their centre back, who had played a few games, is going to start the Brest. But other than that, the team is relatively unchanged. It's a team that Bruno Genesio, who jokingly we call Pep Genesio to compare him to Pep Guardiola because of the result that he had against him, is going to bring his football. There was already quite a major turn when he took over from Julien Stéphan last year. The message from Julien Stéphan just wasn't working anymore, and one of the main piece of discussion around Rennes right now is Eduardo Camavinga, the wonder kid, 17 years old, who's looked at by Paris Saint-Germain, by Real Madrid, by Manchester City. It's going to be, apparently the ball is in his grounds right now to decide if he wants to stay or if he wants to go. I think Genesio definitely counts on him to be part of that midfield. Bourigeaud is another player that only had a bit of a half role in the last past season, who's going to be now very important. He's going to be the vice captain. Amari Traoré, the right back, is going to be very, very good for Rennes as well. Where Rennes lacks, I think, is always that center forward position. They didn't recruit anybody there, and offensively, I feel like that was their main issue last season. They got a new left winger with Sulemana, but not finding anybody to come and help up front, I think might hurt them in the long run. They're going to be playing the Conference League, which is going to also obviously cost them a little bit of energy. But I think we're going to see what Genesio can bring to a team. He done that well in Lyon, even though he didn't end up the right way, and I think they're doing some good work with Florian Maurice. I don't see them fighting for the Champions League or anything like that, but I see them probably at the same place where they were this season, 6th or 7th place, getting some good results, but maybe not yet good enough to be able to fight again the top 4. Next one, and the surprise of last season, the RC Lens. Lens coached by Franck Hez, who came on board in February 2020, who finished just under the European qualifying position last season, and who was really, really positive football team the whole season. In the preseason, they played against Standard de Liège as well, and they drew 1-1. They lost 1-0 against Saint-Gantoise. They drew 2-2 against Le Havre, and they beat Reims 2-1. Lens wasn't very active on the mercato. They did sign Gaël Kakuta in a permanent deal, which they had last season on loan. They signed David Machado from Toulouse. They signed Wesley Said from Toulouse as well, and they finally signed on a permanent deal as well Wilker Fariñez, the goalkeeper from the Millonarios, who's still, as far as we see, number 2 to Jean-Louis Lec. Besides that, they didn't lose a lot of players either. Loic Bade is the main one, of course, that went to Rennes, but that's the only player that kind of mattered that left Lens. So we're going to see very much the same team, the same coach, a team that was on a positive spiral the whole season. We'll see, I guess, depending on how the injury goes and depending how the team plays. Fofana, the midfield who was in Italy the season before, is probably going to finally come to grasp with what's going on in Ligue 1. We expect Kakuta to be as decisive as he was last season. Ganago up front is probably going to be a difference maker. Klaus was really good onto his right wing. They had a strong squad, a strong collective, and some very good depth and some good bench as well. I think we're going to see a little bit of the same thing. What we're not going to see is the surprise effect that was last year. So can Lens really confirm all the good things that we've seen last season? I think that's what's yet to be seen. I think when you just come from Ligue 2 and when you have some very good results, people take a while to actually consider you one of the main threats. I think now it's established that Lens is a threat. And so how will Franck Hez deal with that? The expectations as well from Lens are probably a little bit above what they did last year. Now, you make it to give us the 7th place. Well, how about we go and fight for the 6th or the 5th place? And what happens if he doesn't do that? What happens if there's a series of bad results? The honeymoon period is over because now they've been in Ligue 1 for a season. So it's going to be interesting to see how all those dynamics play in north of France. Obviously, we expect Gaël Kakuta and Ignacio Ganago to play a very important role in that team. I think we need to keep an eye on Fofana in the middle of the pitch, which will probably get back to his level and really showcase what he can do for Lens and what he can do in Ligue 1. It's going to be maybe one of the main players to follow all season. I'm a bit afraid, as you can hear it, for Lens, because I think in the second season, if you don't keep improving and if you don't win all those games that are going to be important, a crisis is quick to come at Stade Bollaert, and I hope that everything's going to be okay for Franck Hez, but it's always hard when you exceed expectations in your first season to confirm in the second season, but time will tell. And we're going back to the south of France now with Montpellier. Montpellier who finished 8th last season, and Montpellier who played some very good football last season under Der Zakarian who left Montpellier at the end of the season, and who was replaced by another coach that made a lot of positive noise, Olivier Dall'Oglio, the former forward who was the coach at Brest and who was playing some very, very positive quality football, offensive football as well at Brest. Dall'Oglio joined at the end of June, so he had the time to do the whole off-season with Montpellier. Montpellier who had a up and down off-season, defeat against Sète 4-2, victory against Rodez 1-0, a defeat against Clermont 3-2, and a pretty impressive win against Leipzig 2-1. Montpellier who did not recruit a lot of players, who was very conservative in their off-season. They got Tuller, a centre-back from Flamengo in Brazil, who's 22 years old. They got Léo Leroy from Châteauroux on a free, and then they got a couple of players back from loan. They didn't lose a lot of players either. A couple of players they decided not to keep, Daniel Congré, Damien Le Tallec, Il Lok Yoon, and Ben Chama. And Hilton, of course, retired, the 43-year-old Brazilian centre-back. But besides that, they basically kept the squad the way it was, and it's a squad that played really well together last year. I think it was very important for them to keep Savanier, who's at the Olympic Games right now, with Laborde and with Delors up front, to be able to keep this front three is probably the core of the success of Montpellier last season. I think with Dall'Oglio we are going to see another dimension of Montpellier, a Montpellier team who can attack faster, who can attack more regularly, I guess, who's going to press high as well, a team that's going to be taking risk, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see those risks paying. Can they do that consistently for the whole season? That's always, the issue with those, I guess, smaller market team. We know that their depth of bench was probably the issue last year. It's going to be a matter of can they now, incorporate young players into that first team prospect to be able to be good for 38 games. It's very positive to see a coach like Dall'Oglio giving the step up from Brest to Montpellier, because it's only going to be going up for him. And if he succeeds at Montpellier, who knows where you're going to see him next. He is one of those new French coach that is really bringing a new identity to what French football can be and could be and should be, I would say, which is all about attacking and pressing high and recovering the ball early, and trying to win 5-4 rather than trying to win 1-0, which is always good for the fans as well. The player I think that we need to look at for Montpellier is TJ Savanier. Not that he's a complete stranger, we've seen him in the past, but I think this season, if he can be regular, of course, now that he's at the Olympics, he's going to start the season a little bit later than anybody else, but if we see him performing regularly, he's probably going to get the nudge from a bigger team at the end of the season, and it's going to be on him to show that he can go from a great Ligue 1 player to potentially a player that can play for a team playing European football. Montpellier is one of the teams to follow this season, and I would expect them to have a nice little top 10 finish again. Another exciting team for the off-season was Nice. Nice, who's now coached by Christophe Galtier, who finally made the move to south of France and to the team that's owned by Ineos, the billionaire firm from England. Nice really, probably turn their fate around with recruiting Christophe Galtier. Christophe Galtier was a coach who's obviously just brought Lille to their first title in 10 years, but also had turned the coin for Saint-Etienne in the past. And Christophe Galtier, who keeps coaching other teams in France and keep trying to find new challenges, new things to do. Besides Christophe Galtier, Nice has added quite a bit of strength in their team. Calvin Stengs, the right winger from AZ, from Alkmaar, which sometimes is called LG Alkmaar, but it doesn't really make sense. But anyway, from Alkmaar for $50 million euros. Todibo has been signed on a permanent deal from Barcelona. Lemina has been signed from Southampton. Melvin Barr is coming from Lyon. They're getting Justin Kluivert, the son of the famous Dutch forward, on loan from Roma. And and they're getting a coach that finally comes with a project, and a coach that will try and get the best of all those famous players that were supposed to be great for Nice and that didn't quite deliver last year. And I'm talking about, Guiri, I'm talking about up front Kasper Dolberg, all those players that we thought were going to make it, and we thought were going to bring Nice to the next level, and didn't quite do it. In the meantime, they lost players that I'm sure they were happy losing. Stanley and Nzoki, Pierre Lesmelou, Willan Cyprien, player that played a role in Nice last season, but they were not the player that could bring them to the next stage. I think Pierre Lesmelou is probably the biggest loss for Nice, but it's going to be replaced by whoever they recruited. William Saliba, of course, he is gone back to Arsenal and then was loaned back to Marseille. And Jeffrey Adelaide wasn't kept after his injury, and neither was Ronnie Lopez. I think it's really the season for Nice, the season where they can achieve what they've always wanted to achieve since Ineos took over, where they can justify the amount of money they spent on some players, because a coach like Christophe Galtier can get those players to gel together and can get those players to actually play together to get some results. Are they going to go to the Champions League straight away? I'm not sure, but they're definitely going to be fighting for that 4th or 5th position, because that's what Christophe Galtier does when it comes to a team. The preseason so far hasn't been great, far from it. A draw against Rodez 1-1, a loss against Lausanne 3-0, a loss against Bastia 1-0, a loss against Union Berlin 2-0, and just one meager win against the Dynamo Kiev 2-1. But Christophe Galtier has been pretty vocal in saying how much he expects from his team, and that what he's seen in those preseason games simply wasn't enough, which is, he said that in the media, so it was definitely a straight dig at his team, and I'm sure they've heard it. But I think it's very positive to have a coach who's straightforward and who says what he expects and says what he wants. And Galtier has that charisma, again, to get the best out of any team that's put for him. So the main recruit for Nice this season is definitely Christophe Galtier. If we talk about the player to watch, Calvin Stengs, no doubt, from Alkmaar, the right winger. He's fast, he provokes, he's a good dribbler, he can score goals. That's a very good addition, I think, to the squad. And Kasper Dolberg, who didn't have a great season last year, but who had a very good Euro with Denmark, hopefully will finally show us how good he's supposed to be and how good he could perform in Liga after a great first season and a so-so second season. It's his time to confirm right now. The last team that we're going to cover today is FC Metz. Metz, coached by Fred Antonetti, who was one of the surprise last season as well. Frédéric Antonetti, who's been the coach at Metz in 2018, but of course he's missed 1 year for personal reason, being his wife being ill, and then he came back and really brought something very positive at FC Metz. In the preseason, they play against Nancy and they lost 3-2. They play against the RFC Serra and drew 1-1, and then they won against Mönchengladbach 1-0, which is quite a feat, even if it's a preseason game. On the off-season, they recruited Amin Bassi, an attacking midfielder from Nancy, and Sofiane Alakouche, the right back from Nîmes Olympique, who was a great right back for Nîmes, and that's about it. Then they got a couple of centre forward on the free from lower division. They lost Victoria Angbang, the central midfielder, who went to play in Russia for the FC Sochi, and then they've loaned a few players. Thierry Ambrose, who wasn't able to really put his mark. They didn't prolong it. John Boy, who's now out of the club, and Aaron Lea Iseka is also back in Toulouse after his loan. I think Metz is going to be a promising squad. Fred Antonetti got the best of them last season, but it was without Ibrahim Anyan, who was their main striker, who scored 6 goals in the first 6 games. And now Nian is going to be back, and that's going to be definitely the player to watch for Metz. Metz has a squad that has a lot of young, unconfirmed talent that is going to have to now show how good they can be in Ligue 1. For the longest time last year, they were 5th, 6th, playing for the European position, and then at the end they sort of dipped and couldn't quite keep that form for the whole 38 games. This is obviously going to be their challenge this season, but we expect them to to fight again for that almost Conference League position, being into the first part, because they bring that youth, they bring that that energy that really caused problem to a lot of teams this season. It's a team that is always good to see play, and it's a team that when they're coached by Fred Antonetti, who's so charismatic and so it's such a character, and always make sure that people talk about him, whether it's with his press conference or what he says on the sidelines. It's always an interesting team to see, and Metz is a club that has a glorious past, a glorious history, and it would be great to see them reliving a bit of their glorious past with Antonetti at their head. Alright, that's the end of the first part of our League 1 preview. We'll do the second one next week after the Trophée des Champions between Lille and Paris Saint-Germain, which is going to be played on August 2nd in Israel. The Trophée des Champions is always played in different countries, and this season they're going to play in Israel. Thanks for tuning back in for episode 1 of the season 2 of Farmers Corners FC. I've been making appearances in a few other podcasts. The Beautiful Game, I've been invited to that podcast, and then I'm going to go to another podcast at the end of the week, which is called the Late Winner Show. Feel free to tune in on any of those podcasts. If you're listening on Spotify, on Apple Podcast or anything, thank you for following. If you're watching on YouTube, which I'll post that video on YouTube now, please like, share and subscribe. Spread the word. I'm trying to make sure all the information about Ligue 1 come as fast as possible. Next week, very important topics in that second part of Ligue 1 preview. We're going to talk about Bordeaux and their new owner. We're going to talk about Troyes, the club from the City Football Group, who's finally in Ligue 1, and it's going to be interesting to see what the City Football Group does with two clubs in two top tier in the Big Five in Europe, and we're going to talk about some teams that disappointed last year and see what they can do this year to turn the coin around. I'm thinking about Nantes, I'm thinking about Strasbourg, and see if their club can expect to go up front. Of course, we're also going to discuss who we think is not going to make it at the end of the season and who has the best chances to be relegated. Thank you for tuning in. Jeremy Magan, as usual. Feel free to ask questions on Twitter, Facebook, whatever you use in social media, and I look forward to that long season and a lot of football in 21-22. Thank you. Ciao. Bye bye.